Start of a weekend at home for the Lakers, and a much-needed one. Now, let's see if they can turn it around where they've lost 7 of their last 8.
Kobe Bean Bryant, March 16th, 2007. Tie game, 50 seconds ago, one of my favorite plays of all time. Kobe already has 60 points, and you know Portland does not want him to score anymore. So what do? They double him in the corner of the court. For my non-basketball watchers, this should be a checkmate. I mean, 2 guys are on both sides of his body. How the hell is he going to get out of this? Well, ladies and gentlemen, if there's one thing I learned watching basketball growing up, it is you don't bet against Kobe Bryant, because he'll end up burning you just like this. Similar to the late great Mamba in this photo, Facebook over the past 15 years has been in situations where it felt the walls were caving in on both sides. Yet, like clockwork, it seems just when they made the front page for their latest scandal, on the back page they're announcing record profit in another quarter filled with phenomenal growth. But as we dive deeper into the 2020s decade, despite the financial success Facebook has achieved up to this point, what if I were to tell you the risks associated with this company's survival have never been higher? So what is good, YouTube? It is your boy Kobe back with another video. Hope you guys are doing well. Hope you guys are in good spirits wherever you're watching this. So today's video, we're going over the one and only Facebook, a company that has one-of-a-kind dramatics whenever they are in the news. The focus of today's video is going to be on whether or not Facebook is going to be a good investment for us moving forward. Now, there's a lot of people that think Facebook is undervalued, but perhaps there may be a reason as to why that is. If you guys enjoyed the video, please make sure to drop a like, subscribe if you're new. We're just starting out here, but any new support would be great. And with that said, I don't want to waste any more time. Future Kobe, let's take it away.
So, on this special day, on behalf of everyone at Facebook, I just want to say to all the people out there who use Facebook and our products, thank you. So let's do this.
On May 18th, 2012, after a near decade in the spotlight, with even Hollywood taking interest, one of the most famous companies in the world finally gave the public a chance to invest in their future. Although the IPO turned out to be a disaster, with shares initially priced at $38 crashing to $18, Facebook has rewarded the folks who believed and got in at the ground floor, delivering an average annual return of 37.6% in the 8 years since their debut in the stock market. Despite many who scoffed at Facebook's potential to be consistently profitable as a social media company with no true product, making money is exactly what Facebook did in the 2010s decade, and they did so with tremendous success. Let's be very clear, in 2012, Facebook made $5 billion in total revenue. And at the time, there were no shortage of folks that thought the peak for Facebook's advertising business had nearly been reached and they would need to find other avenues of monetization. But soon enough, we would find out how wrong these skeptics were. Because in 2013, total revenue jumped to $7.8 billion. Then in 2014, total revenue was $12.5 billion. 2015 was $17.9 billion. Jump another 3 years, 2018 saw Facebook cross $55 billion in total revenue. And for the total full year in 2020, revenue for Facebook accelerated to $85 billion with the net income of $29 billion. Man, where's Soulja Boy when you need him? So right off the jump, I want you guys to understand we're looking at a company that has grown over 1,500% in 8 years, and last year grew their already sky-high revenues by 21% and their net income by 57%. Look at that gross margin, god damn. As sharp investors though, the next question we have to ask is, how in the hell were they able to accomplish this, and will they continue to keep this up? Well, in 2018, Mark Zuckerberg told Congress the explosive secret as to how they make all their money.
So how do you sustain a business model in which users don't pay for your service?
Senator, we run ads.
For those who don't live under a rock, or I guess who didn't really pay attention before, advertising is Facebook's bread and butter and the golden goose to how they made it on the Mount Rushmore of big tech. 98% of their revenue comes from advertising, and while that's certainly a risk factor that I'll talk about later, within their advertising revenue, the good news is the ad sales are well diversified across over 10 million different advertisers on the platform. In fact, less than 20% of their revenues come from their top 100 advertisers. What this tells us is the majority of Facebook's clients that use their platform to advertise are small and medium-sized businesses. And you may ask the logical question, why are they using Facebook ads? Why not opt for local TV, radio, or other social media platforms? Why exactly is there so much demand for Facebook's advertising as opposed to others? The answer to this is more basic than Kylie Jenner ordering a spiced pumpkin latte at Starbucks. Simply put, Facebook has by far more users and richer data than any other competitor other than maybe Google. Because Facebook knows so much about each and every person signed up, their ability to allow advertisers to target specifically for the potential customers they want is magnified. A divorce attorney that wants to target 45-year-old divorced women from Green Bay, Wisconsin? Done. A clothing brand that wants to run advertising for Vietnam veterans living in Northern California? You got it. A jewelry store that only wants to target 30 to 35-year-old men with pierced nipples and mom tattoos? Absolutely. Well, actually, I don't know about that one, but you guys get the point. Facebook's advertising is second to none, and it comes down to the fact they have so many users full of rich data on their site. Don't forget, the active number of users is another very, very important metric we have to look at as potential investors for Facebook, because with any decrease in users or watch time means less opportunity for advertisers to find potential customers. As you can see, over the last 3 years, Facebook has gradually increased their daily active users from 1.4 billion to 1.8 billion, and monthly active users from 2.1 billion to 2.7 billion. Clearly, Facebook's growth in users can only grow so much, but you don't want any user churn that can negatively impact the bottom line. Fortunately, the generous tailwind that is the online advertising revolution has helped Facebook continue to grow revenues despite only modest growth in users. Ladies and gentlemen, we interrupt this documentary to give a quick valuation check on the company we are discussing, which is Facebook. Now, I don't want to kill the pacing of this video, so cue the dancing monkeys in 3, 2, 1. Gotcha, bitch! All jokes aside, guys, let's just do a quick run through on Facebook as opposed to the 4 other major tech companies. So I have 3 major key ratios that I like to use, and again, this is just to go really quickly, but we're going to go through price to earnings ratio, EV over EBITDA, and price to free cash flow, which is one that I really do like to look at. So first thing, we have price to earnings ratio, and Facebook has a price to earnings ratio of 28. Apple has a price to earnings ratio of 32, Amazon has a price to ratio of 72, Google has a price to ratio of 34, and Microsoft has a price to earnings ratio of 34. So you can see there, Facebook has the lowest price to earnings ratio. EV over EBITDA, another really important metric that we like to look at for valuation. Facebook is at 19.6, Apple's at 23.2, Amazon is at 30.3, Google at 20.5, and Microsoft at 22.3. Again, Facebook a little bit closer between the 4 tech companies, especially when you look at Google, but still beats out everybody for the lowest valuation. Now when we look at price to free cash flow, which is just simply the market cap divided by free cash flow for 2020, we look and we see that Facebook is at 34.1, Apple is at 27.7, Amazon is at 49.5, Google is at 31.9, and Microsoft is at 39.4. One last thing to tie off this valuation check, it's really good to look at the growth estimates for these companies. So over the next 5 years, according to Yahoo Finance, Facebook is projected to grow at 21%, Apple at 14.7%, Amazon at 38%, Google at 17%, and Microsoft at 16.7%. What's interesting is not only is Facebook the lowest price to earnings ratio among the 5 big tech companies, they also have the second highest growth estimates. This has been your valuation check, sponsored by absolutely nobody. Voiceover Kobe, back to you. When you consider Instagram is not yet near its full monetization potential, the market providing such a discount to Facebook as opposed to the other big players is a bit puzzling. But after doing some research and thinking of what exactly could go wrong with Facebook, I realized there are definitely risks associated that could cause some serious trouble for their business. Very quietly, they're actually at war with a few different entities. So going from my least concerns to biggest concerns, here are 4 of the biggest existential threats to Facebook as we know it. Number 4. An unfavorable ruling in antitrust lawsuit could radically impact Facebook's outlook. You ever wake up in the morning and someone tells you you're so big, maybe too big? No? Well, that's exactly what happened to Mark Zuckerberg, and unfortunately for him, it wasn't his wife. Because on December 9th, the US Federal Trade Commission filed a lawsuit against Facebook, alleging that the company is, quote, illegally maintaining its personal social monopoly through a near-decade-long course of anti-competitive conduct. In plain English, the FTC is arguing FB has become too powerful, and it is a direct result of how they've conducted business. Now, to be clear, the FTC has had plenty of complaints in the last few years when it comes to these large tech corporations, and every once in a while you will see in the news that Google or maybe Amazon is paying a fine because of some practice they did wrong. In the grand scheme of things, most of these infractions are not the end of the world, and they really do not impact the long-term fundamentals of the company. This lawsuit with Facebook is different, my friends. This is not a drill. The FTC is flat out looking for blood with this one, and they are genuinely seeking to radically change Facebook's future as a tech titan. How they plan to do this is by potentially forcing Zuckerberg to sell off the crown jewels in Facebook's treasure chest in both Instagram and WhatsApp. Before anyone panic sells, let's all take a deep breath and think this through. What are the chances of this happening, and what would actually happen if Facebook actually lost the case? While this could of course be its own separate video, let us try our best to blaze through this. Going through the FTC report, it looks like they're going to heavily lean on Mark Zuckerberg's internal emails with executives talking through the merits of purchasing social media companies instead of competing with them way back in the day. You can see the smoking gun emails here from February 2012, where Zuck essentially implies Facebook acquiring Instagram will help ensure both neutralizing a competitor and then allowing Facebook to integrate their network with Instagram. Just so we're all on the same page in terms of the timeline, Facebook acquired Instagram for $1 billion in 2012 and then WhatsApp in 2014 for $19 billion. Oh yeah, and they also tried to acquire Snapchat in 2013, but the CEO refused. Unbelievable. I'm actually trying to picture a Facebook exec meeting during this time. Oh, hey Tommy, I didn't see you there. Making some coffee before the big meeting, I see. Rob, my man, you know it. Hey, just made a fresh brew. You want a cup? Nah, man, just had some papaya actually. But hey, look, there's this new startup place I wanted to check out.
Acquire them.
Whoa, Zuck, where'd you come from?
Not important. Acquire them.
No, Mark, you don't understand.
Find out how much they're worth from the finance department, offer them double, and acquire them.
No, Mark.
You idiot. Do as I say. I have 58% of the voting shares, you peasant.
Mark, I was talking about the Korean barbecue startup restaurant down on Melrose. It just opened up. I was thinking of doing it for the company for Friday lunch.
Oh, the Korean barbecue restaurant. My apologies. Sounds good. Put it on the company card.
I gotta get a new job at Snapchat. Ironically, in hindsight, Snapchat's bold decision to reject Lord Zuckerberg's $3 billion offer might be the only thing standing in the way of Facebook not having to break up their social media empire. Because practically speaking, guys, I don't think it's a hot take for me to say I have no doubt Facebook is 100% guilty of what the FTC is charging them with. Instead of competing early on last decade, they immediately tried to diffuse any momentum a new upstart had with their significant financial advantage. I mean, I think it's pretty obvious to see. But remember, the concern as investors isn't if Facebook is guilty in the eyes of you or I, but if they're guilty in the eyes of a court that holds much higher standards than just us thinking, well, of course Facebook is guilty. Through this lens, FB's lawyers certainly have strong ammo to push back on the lawsuit. Because first of all, competition in the social media industry has never been higher than right now, with rivals like Twitter and Snapchat showing signs of potential breakthrough after years of disappointment, and then of course in the case of TikTok and YouTube, you're seeing tremendous rapid growth that could definitely be characterized as a threat to Facebook's future interests. In addition, when it comes to acquiring Instagram, they have a pretty nice story to tell given the fact IG was just a 13-man company with literally not one drop of revenue when Facebook made the purchase in 2012. Today, Instagram is obviously a behemoth that quietly is driving Facebook's growth, but that's after years of guidance under FB management. So considering these facts, personally, I think as long as Facebook doesn't have the lawyer from anger management defending them, they should be able to beat this legally, even though they are far from innocent in actuality. Even if they are somehow forced to sell Instagram or WhatsApp in a worst case scenario, this could ironically unlock more overall public value to shareholders because IG as a standalone company would definitely trade at a much higher multiple than what Facebook is. So needless to say, although fun to talk about, this overall risk is far from my most concerning. Number 3. The frequency of negative media portrayal may lead Congress to act in rare display of unity against Facebook. Blink-182 once said in a song, "Nobody likes you when you're 23, but I'm sure if Facebook existed in 1999, they would have scratched that and just said, nobody likes Facebook, and dropped the mic." Apart from the big banks on Wall Street, I've never seen a company be more despised by the general public and continue to rise financially than Facebook. It's like the more unpopular they get, the more successful they become. However, this phenomenon can have an ugly turn if politicians, who generally lead from behind and go with the wind, decide they are finally going to take action that will severely hamper Facebook moving forward. Although Donald Trump's ire against Twitter might be the most remembered in the history books 1,000 years from now, the truth is both Democrats and Republicans are on record speaking out against big tech, with particular focus on Facebook for their inability to take a strong stand on the misinformation that is spread on their website. As a result, Section 230, the US law that currently protects social media companies from being liable for what is shared on their platform, was certainly at risk of revision whether Joe Biden or Trump got reelected. But Section 230 isn't the only thing Facebook has to worry about. It just got a lot worse for them in other parts of the world. Remember that country Australia, located at the bottom right of World Picture Day? Well, they finally told Facebook and other tech companies last month they were going to have to pay publishers for their news content and passed a law forcing them to do so. In typical Zuckerberg fashion, he responded to this by immediately blocking all news on its platform in Australia. To be fair, Google wasn't happy about this new law either, but both companies eventually relented and secured a deal with Australia after realizing their PR teams were literally burning on fire with all the negative coverage. But let's go back and think about their initial thought process. Why would Zuckerberg and Facebook take such drastic action in the first place when I'm sure the cost of payment to Australian media outlets to them is akin to the random chick paying for a bag of hot Cheetos at Walgreens? Well, it's because they know the rest of the world is watching, and most importantly, there is now a threat of adoption by other countries. Zuckerberg immediately realized, oh my god, this isn't just an Australia problem, this is a rest of the world problem. As you can imagine, all news outlets who are also getting zero currently are going to their lawmakers and saying, where the hell is our cut in all of this? Why does Australia get paid, but not us? All of a sudden, the future potential cost and regulation from this one tiny problem in Australia is now potentially increased significantly, and now as investors, you have to consider how damaging this could be to their bottom line in the future. Adding this issue to another long list of tension points with world governments on a myriad of issues, and you start to understand the slippery slope Facebook is going to have to weather here. Speaking of slippery slopes, number 2, war on data collecting led by Apple could slowly destroy Facebook. Okay, now we're touching on things that get pretty scary if you're a Facebook investor, so no more time for jokes. Although the media wants to make sure we are all experts on the royal family Meghan Markle beef, there's another battle between two powerful foes going on right under our noses. You may have not known this, but Tim Cook, CEO of Apple, and Mark Zuckerberg do not like each other at all. In fact, Apple and Facebook are pretty much in the middle of a cold war. Over the years, there had been clear, subtle jabs at one another over how they run their respective businesses, but now they've reached a boiling point, with Apple providing a striking blow. On January 28th, Apple announced they are following through on bringing the new feature, App Tracking Transparency, or ATT, to their latest iOS 14 update in spring 2021. What this feature will do is it will require all iPhone apps to get users' users permission before tracking their data across their platform. Basically, instead of having the default of a user being opted into data tracking, Apple is now putting the question right in front of the user's face before diving into the app. As an example, here is what a pop-up could look like in the case of a user opening up their Facebook app for the first time. You see, they'll either have to allow or ask the app not to track. Now, you might be thinking to yourself, okay Kobe, what's the big deal? Isn't this a good thing that users are now going to be able to have more transparency over their privacy? Honestly, for society, it probably is. However, this is a total disaster for Facebook's business. I promise you, this is the nightmare Zuckerberg has woken up from multiple times, and let me explain why. Earlier in the video, I talked about how Facebook's advertising product was the best in the game, mainly because of the number of curated users they have, ready to be targeted for any company looking to generate leads. Well, by now giving iPhone users the opportunity to opt out from the jump, advertisers are not going to be able to find their customers as easily as they had before. Think about it like this. That divorce attorney looking for divorcees in Green Bay, Wisconsin, let's say 3 of those potential clients opt out of data tracking. As a result, they can no longer be targeted like they did before, and there's a good chance the divorce attorney will not be able to locate them. To say Facebook is extremely concerned over this development would be an understatement. Not only did they refer to Apple over a dozen times on their latest earnings call, they signaled this could have material impact on their bottom line as early as Q2 2021. Although criticism against Facebook over privacy is not new in the slightest, this is truly the first time we've seen a dramatic development occur that actually has the potential to do some damage. Apple makes up about 50% of the US smartphone market, and even though not all users will get the iOS 14 update for a while, you have to wonder how many users are going to opt out of the personalized ads experience. It's actually a question I want to ask you guys. Let me know if you're an iPhone user in the comments below. Will you opt out of this targeting when presented the option, or will you allow it? Anyways, despite Facebook's argument that this is going to hurt small businesses the most, it's hard to argue giving users full transparency on what data they are sharing. I am hoping and praying they are working on a proper solution to this, because I'm not going to lie, this terrifies me a little bit. Which brings me to my biggest concern as a Facebook investor. Number 1, Mark Zuckerberg. Facebook's greatest strength and greatest weakness. Here we have it, the biggest enigma we have among all the major CEOs. For all the crap Zuckerberg rightfully gets as CEO of Facebook, he has answered the call in a lot of ways from his days as a teenage computer programming wizard. There's a lot of people that never thought in a million years the company would be this successful, and he has proved them wrong so far. Controversial or not, his ability to navigate through the gray areas of the social media industry has made Facebook one of the most valuable companies in the world. At the same time, he's far from perfect, and I'm starting to wonder if these new challenges are going to expose some of his biggest weaknesses. For example, from ripping off Snapchat stories, ripping off TikTok, ripping off YouTube, to even ripping off the original idea of Facebook in the first place, I actually think the jokes of him being a robot are more true about his management style than his mannerisms. Now, of course, imitation is the strongest form of flattery, and creativity isn't really a prerequisite for being a successful CEO, but from my vantage point, Facebook's future outside of their advertising business remains cloudy, partly because Zuckerberg's vision is so bland. I look at the other major tech companies like Google, Amazon, Apple, and you can see how many verticals they're getting into and their diversity of product offerings, and then I look back at Facebook and I think,
Senator, we run ads.
Even the vision behind Oculus, Facebook's greatest growth story apart from Instagram, is really just a huge convoluted bet that virtual reality is going to be the new way to advertise to customers. The innovation and product scope from Facebook is critically lacking in comparison to the other big dogs. It makes me wonder if they're going to be able to find a new major source of revenue if this data protection problem gets more and more troublesome for them down the road and continues to eat at their bottom line. As a shareholder, I would love to see more aggression from them with all that cash sitting on their balance sheet. $61 billion of cash just sitting there. What are you going to do with it apart from buying back shares? Double-digit growth from advertising is not going to last forever. What is your next play? Obviously, you can't go acquire another social media company with this lawsuit hanging over your head, but what other industries would you consider? Any other hardware plays apart from Oculus? Those are the questions I have for Zuckerberg and Facebook moving forward, and I'm genuinely curious if they will solve the 99% of our profits are from ads problem. For the time being though, profits are profits, and the cash flow machine they have will give them time to come up with something. Simply due to his track record of finding ways to get out of sticky situations, I am betting again that Zuckerberg will find a way to make Facebook flourish from this point forward. So the $1 million question, am I investing in Facebook? Well, I already alluded to in the video a bit that I am already invested, so I want to be clear, I have a cost basis currently at $247, but the latest stock price for Facebook is $283. So the question for me is, would I invest in Facebook at these current levels? And my answer to this is probably not. Now, I'm not a financial advisor, you guys gotta do your own research, but the truth is, I personally think considering all these headwinds that Facebook has going on and the fact we're less than 10% from Facebook's all-time high, I really wonder if right now would be a good time to get in and if there's a potential opportunity to get in at better prices. Now don't get me wrong, I do believe in Facebook long term. I will not be selling any of my Facebook shares as a result of all the issues going on with them as a company, but I do really wonder if there will be a better opportunity to get in, because like I said, there is a lot of negative sentiment with this company and tech in general. If you look at the NASDAQ, it definitely has shown signs of weakness. So with big tech also moving downward, Facebook could also be moving downward. Anyways guys, that is the video. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you gained some value from this. If you enjoyed, please make sure to drop a like. We're gonna be making a ton of more content just like this. And with that said, I hope you guys have a beautiful day or night or whatever time it is. It's your boy Kobe P. I'll catch you on the next one. Peace.